Then God will build this world from love. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Misa Iwama. I'm the Director of Music Ministry. I have dark hair. I'm shorter than most of the adults in the room. I'm wearing black clothes and a blue and white shawl. Tomorrow is Indigenous Peoples Day, and we are here on the land of the Lenni Lenape. We'd like to give everyone a chance to connect after the service. There will be coffee in the balcony, so please stop by and tell us how you're doing. Two people you will see up there are Jean Creighton and Norm Miller, and from them you can buy tickets for next week's pancake breakfast, which benefits our partnership with the Unitarians in Barote, Transylvania. You can also learn about our upcoming concert on October 29th for afternoon music. The legendary jazz pianist Cyrus Chestnut is going to be here playing. And it's really incredibly rare to be able to hear someone like that playing in our sanctuary on this gorgeous Steinway piano. And he'll be doing a whole concert of jazz that's very personal to him. There's actually multiple ways that you could participate in music here at Beacon. One, by being an audience member. You can also sing in the choir as a kid or as an adult. You can sing during a Sunday service. And I hope you do, because music gives us a way to imagine a better world, which is full of beauty and joy. And with that thought, I pray for the day where we all live in peace, and we live in a world that was built by love. I will build this world from love. And you must build this world from love. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. I invite you to stand in body, form, and spirit. Join in singing our opening hymn, which is love will guide us.
Today, as we approach Indigenous Peoples Day on Wednesday, October 11th, we acknowledge the land we are upon. We learn about the people of this land, the Lenni Lenape. We kindle a light for illuminating truth. We light a chalice here, as well as a second one that will be carried out by our children during candle lighting. The light goes with us always. Today we come with our stories of hope and heartache. We come yearning for healing and grounding. We kindle a light for our healers. Today we gather within a world that can be frightening and turbulent, unjust and painful. We gather to undo harm and to bring generational transformation. We kindle a light for liberation. This moment, we are a congregation that will never be again. We can sense beyond our particularities a force that connects us, renews us, and sustains us. We kindle a light for love.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This morning's story for all ages comes from Carla Messinger, the founder of the Museum of Indian Culture in Allentown, Pennsylvania, an organization that fosters a greater understanding of public awareness of Lenape history, as well as contemporary Lenape life. It's called When the Shad Bush Blooms. Surprisingly, I found out that when we use the phrase Lenni Lenape, we're being redundant. Lenape means the original people, and Lenni being one of the prime root words of it means we're saying the original people when we say Lenni Lenape, so we should just use Lenape. It's the accurate term to refer to the indigenous people whose lands that we're on. They've been here for 14,000 years. It's one of the oldest known nations in North America, and for the Filani Lenape, which means the first or original people, they lived in the vast forests that covered parts of Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, and Connecticut. Lenape people tell us we were hunters, fishers, farmers, and our villages were located along the banks of the tributary of a river that we called the Lenape Waldetuck, the river of the people. Europeans renamed our river the Delaware because we lived along that river. They started calling us the Delaware Indians. Our people belonged to many clans, including turkey, turtle, wolf, deer, and bear. Our ways of living varied according to the climate and ecology of our particular location. But we were one people, all dialects using one single language, part of the large Algonquin family of languages. Lenape believe in a single powerful creator called Kishmalakunk, he who creates with his thoughts. He created all the good things in the Manitowoc, that spirit helpers that lived and controlled the forces of nature, of plants, and of animals. Everything has a spirit. Animals, insects, trees, air, even rocks. Everything has to be respected and cherished. And every Lenape endeavors to live in harmony with the environment, the plants, and our animals. Whole families like Carla's live close to the land and to each other through the cycle of seasons. Let's listen to one of those seasons, spring.
Sikon is spring. My grandparents' grandparents walked beside the same stream where I walk with my brother, and we can see the same things they saw. Deer leaping in the woods, hawks flying circles overhead, frogs splashing, and turtles sunning themselves on the rocky bank. In early spring, when the shad bush blooms like a white lace veil, we go fishing. Dad smiles when we catch a shad. We roast the fish and everyone enjoys it, especially the dog. As the seasons circle around once more, my brother and I walk to the stream. We watch for the shad bush to bloom again as my grandparents' grandparents did. Look around, we're still here. We continue to practice our people's traditions and to follow the circle of the seasons where sun, moon, and the natural world have guided our lives for countless generations.
Carla, now an adult, shares the healing and the reclaiming that's now currently being done.
Eventually, the settlers' encroachment made life impossible for us and forced most of us to migrate north to Canada or west to places like Ohio to Oklahoma. While some of us remained here hiding in plain sight and struggling to survive, only recently, in the late 20th century, have we begun to reclaim our language and histories, our wisdom and knowledge. We are reclaiming our ceremonies and songs, our stories and art. We are reclaiming and cultivating our medicine plants and are reclaiming how to live in the natural world.
So today, when a Lenape girl ventures to the stream to fish for shad, she knows that another girl did the same thing generation after generation before her. And through the cycle of the seasons, what is important has always remained: being family, knowing when the berries are ripe for picking, listening to stories about tradition and change in a warm home surrounded by love, by people who love you, generation to generation. Here ends our story for all ages.
Good morning. My name is Dennis Mannion. I respond to he and him. I'm about 5'9", reddish brown hair, blue eyes. I'm a member of our Beacon chaplain team. Our role as chaplains is to extend the spiritual care of our community. We recognize that everyone needs care at different points in our lives, and as chaplains, we offer ourselves as a one-to-one resource for deep listening, and in that listening, provide a foundation for healing. And if you have any questions about our chaplain program, please see me or any member of the ministry team after the service. Another way we extend the spiritual care of our community is by facilitating our weekly ritual of candlelighting. Today, our first candle, with the help of Robin, is a small but powerful beacon of sorrow and hope for peace, for all who are living with the horrors of armed conflict in so many places around the world, especially today, including again in the Middle East. A candle of honor for imprisoned Iranian human rights activist Narges Mohammad, who won the 2023 Nobel Peace Prize for her fight against the oppression of women in Iran and her fight to promote human rights and freedom for all. A candle of celebration for tomorrow's Indigenous Peoples Day, recognizing the sovereignty, resilience, and immense contributions that Indigenous communities have had in the Americas for thousands of years and continue to have today. And finally, a candle of healing and love for Emily's mother, Jean Ann Schaeferman, who had a stroke last weekend and is recovering this morning in rehab. For these and for so much more, we invite you now to come forward and light a candle here in our sanctuary or wherever you might be.
Good morning, beloved. I'm Reverend Robin. My pronouns are she, her. I'm an average height, white woman, shoulder length, brown hair, blue dress with a blue jacket. When I first wrote out our Sunday service for this week, in the place that we are now, instead of the word meditation, I wrote mediation. Perhaps that is what we need sometimes when we come here to Beacon, when we join in online, maybe a mediation of sorts, a reconnecting, a disentangling. So I invite you into that continued practice of loosening, of letting go, of releasing. I'm going to sound our gong, and as you experience this beautiful sound filling the sanctuary and then subsiding, perhaps you can imagine that wave of sound going through your own body, releasing, recentering, reconnecting. Hear from this sound. Let us now listen to our bodies first. What do they long to share? A memory, grief, a joy, a worry, sadness and fear perhaps, as news breaks of another war, of pain and conflict. Where in your body do these live? Do these cry out? Do these call out to be soothed, to be heard? Here, listen. Here with an open-hearted peace, offer compassion. I invite you now to extend this listening beyond the house of your own body, perhaps to those in this room, or to a circle of beloveds, family, friends, neighborhoods. Listening again with this open-hearted peace. What do you notice? What calls to your mind, to your heart? Extending that compassion once more. Now, beloved, listen to earth. How you are connected with earth, of earth. Center in this connection. A rootedness. Slow yourself down just a little bit more. How does earth speak? Call out, emerge for you now. With that breath that connects all living things, take a very deep one with me. With gratitude that we are of earth, connected with earth. With gratitude that we are of a beloved circle we can only barely imagine. With gratitude for generation to generation. With gratitude for the life we are given this day. I invite you to come back into this place. Eyes open, maybe looking around. If you're joining us online, looking at me, seeing the light that is here and not just the candles in front of me. Amen. I have the honor of introducing our very first Sunday of a 3-Sunday special plate collection for an organization that is dear to my heart, but also dear to Beacon's heart. Faith in New Jersey is a multi-faith and multi-racial network of faith leaders and faith communities working together to advance a social and economic justice agenda, both at the local level, the county level, the state level, and federal. Faith in New Jersey's mission is to develop grassroots community leaders, analyze the policies that shape our communities, and mobilize faith voices and faith voters to effectively act on the prophetic call to build beloved community. Our own Beacon member, Charlene Walker, is the executive director of Faith in New Jersey, and often that's why Charlene's not able to be here with us on a Sunday experiencing Beacon, because she's at another faith community in New Jersey sharing the good news of Faith in New Jersey. Faith in New Jersey is not a new organization. It's been organizing statewide since 2010 and changed their name in 2015 to better reflect the goal of building a powerful faith voice right here. They're part of a larger network called Faith in Action Network, formerly known as PICO, and that involves 45 federations with more than 1,200 congregations in 21 states across the U.S., all engaged in faith-based community organizing initiatives to reduce racial and economic disparities, and it's one of the longest and largest community-based efforts in the country. Faith in New Jersey, here in New Jersey specifically, and really rootedly organizes in 4 counties, of which we are in 1, Essex, Union, Middlesex, and Camden. In particular to Beacon, they've been very engaged with our work around policing, which has really advanced a racial justice agenda right here with our Summit Police Department, and work that continues because of their guidance, because of their shaping and early inspiration. They're also working on housing and harm reduction, as well as one of the organizations that Beacon Hope and Equity Center turns to when we have a grant cycle and we need organizers to get the word out and get applications so that our micro grants can reach Black and brown communities throughout New Jersey. Faith in New Jersey is one of our partners and connects us to other valuable partners like Black Lives Matter Patterson. They are a critical partner in our organizing work, kind of balancing the direct service that Beacon does and help us engage also in the long-term community organizing to change the very structures that create iniquity. Your donations today support their vital presence in our communities throughout the state. They're just about to hire an organizer for Union County, so I do encourage you to give generously. We are looking forward to partnering with them even more deeply in the year to come. Our morning offering, beloved, will now be most gratefully received.
introduce myself earlier. I always forget who I am sometimes. My name is Dick Muldoon. I'm 6 feet 2 inches tall, a white-haired, old white man, wearing a pink shirt and a very precious pink tie. I don't know if Marilyn is here to understand that, but it is in honor of the continuity of things at Beacon. Today's reading is called Conflict Resolution for Holy Beings. It is a poem by Joy Harjo. She is the 23rd U.S. Poet Laureate and the first Native American to hold that honor. The poem begins with an epigraph by Norman Patrick Brown, Dene poet and speaker, and someone known to those of you who are film fans. I am the holy being of my mother's prayer and my father's song. Part 1, set conflict resolution ground rules. Recognize whose lands these are on which we stand. Ask the deer, turtle, and the crane. Make sure the spirits of these lands are respected and treated with goodwill. The land is a being who remembers everything. You will have to answer to your children and their children and theirs. The red shimmer of remembering will compel you up the night to walk the perimeter of truth for understanding. As I brushed my hair over the hotel sink to get ready, I heard, by listening, we will understand who we are in this holy realm of words. Do not parade, pleased with yourself. You must speak in the language of justice. Part 2, use effective communication skills that display and enhance mutual trust and respect. If you sign this paper, we will become brothers. We will no longer fight. We will give you this land and these waters as long as the grass shall grow and the rivers run. The lands and waters they gave us did not belong to them to give. Under false pretenses, we signed. After drugging by drink, we signed. With a mass of gunpowder pointed at us, we signed. With a flotilla of warships at our shores, we signed. We are still signing. We have found no peace in this act of signing. A casino was raised up over the graveside of our ancestors. Our own distant cousins pulled up the bones of grandparents, parents, and grandchildren from their last sleeping place. They had forgotten how to be human beings. Restless winds emerged from the earth when the graves were open, and the winds went looking for justice. If you raise this white flag of peace, we will honor it. At Sand Creek, several hundred women, children, and men were slaughtered in an unspeakable massacre after a white flag was raised. The American soldiers trampled the white flag in the blood of the peacemakers. There is a suicide epidemic among Native children. It is triple the rate of the rest of America. It feels like wartime, said a child welfare worker in South Dakota. If you send your children to our schools, we will train them to get along in this changing world. We will educate them. We had no choice. They took our children. Some ran away and froze to death. If they were found, they were dragged back to the school and punished. They cut their hair, took away their language, until they became as strangers to themselves, even as they became strangers to us.
In 1977, the United Nations sponsored a conference in Geneva entitled the International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas. Attended by a delegation of Native nations, it was a historic moment. It was there that the idea was first introduced to stop celebrating Columbus Day and to begin Indigenous Peoples Day, which in many places will be honored tomorrow. It was an effort, first, to put an end to celebrating colonialism, and most especially Columbus, who of course did not discover a land and people already present, but even moreover, sought to subjugate and eliminate indigenous peoples, personally participating in genocide. By contrast, Indigenous Peoples Day is about telling the stories, sharing culture and language of Native peoples, as well as the honest story of colonialism. It is about committing to the justice and human rights for all Native people, and it is about affirming Indigenous sovereignty. Now, this may be all well and good, you could rightfully say, but isn't this a social, political, legal, historical issue, not really one for a religious community? What role, after all, do religious liberals possibly have beyond petitions and solidarity in Indigenous Peoples Day? Well, we have to go back a bit in order to go forward, as is true with many things. Colonialism itself was fueled by a religious idea stamped by the Pope himself. In 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued a papal decree declaring that Christians, more specifically those in Portugal, had the right to conquer and colonize non-Christians. Quote, and any other unbelievers and enemies of Christ wherever they may be, as well as their kingdoms, their counties, their principalities, and other property, and to reduce their persons into perpetual servitude, end quote. This decree, religiously stamped, formed the basis of the doctrine of discovery in 1493 and laid out the moral justification for slavery, genocide, and land theft for people exactly like Christopher Columbus. Now, thus far, as religious liberals, you might say that this story seems still far from our home here and now. After all, the Unitarians and the Universalists fled and fought against papal persecution as well as other orthodoxies, right? But in 1823, the U.S. Supreme Court decision, Johnson versus McIntosh, the court held up the doctrine of discovery, arguing that the legal principles outlined in the earlier doctrine of discovery extended from the Europeans to now United States citizens. Associate Justice Joseph Story, a Unitarian, affirmed the decision, saying, quote, as infidels, heathens, and savages, they, the Indians, were not allowed to possess the prerogatives belonging to the absolute sovereign and independent nations. Among the many tactics used against Native Americans to decimate them was the practice of stealing their children. Boarding schools swept Native children from their homes and their families and forced them to abandon their identities, their culture, their language, and suffer abuse and even death in some cases. We know of at least 3 boarding schools in the United States that were at different points run by Unitarians. How, you might rightfully ask, receiving the gut punch of this information, if you didn't know it before, could a liberal religion participate at all in genocide? Certainly we can say that those persons were at that time a product of their own culture and raising. And certainly we could say, well, not all Unitarians. But I think there is something deeper to acknowledge here beyond the particularities of the perpetrators and the denominational affiliations of those guilty of these human rights atrocities. That matters absolutely in the work of accountability and truth-telling and legal ramifications, but I think we are here today to ask a different question. As Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. famously instructed us in the wake of the death of Reverend James Reeb and Jimmy Lee Jackson, the question is not who, but what. What led people generation after generation to inflict such violence and pain? And I think that is where our collective work begins. When I think of the boarding schools, I think of those children and I think of what kind of trauma that inflicts generationally. I think of the children and the trauma that extends from that, but I also think of the teachers. The young teachers brought in and raised and taught and instructed to inflict cruelty. What does that do to the soul of a people, to the soul of a country? Generation after generation, what kind of collective trauma? Suppression of the most elemental experience of being human, compassion and empathy. When you are taught not to feel, not to hurt for another human being, not to care, not to even recognize in your body the way it cries out when another person is in pain. What has it done to the soul of America when some of us slaughtered, enslaved, and tried to decimate others? When some of us have both lineages in our bodies, and more as this country becomes more diverse and pluralist, some of us have to reckon both with the lineage of inflicting trauma and the lineage of being the target of trauma. Now, we can't put on trial all of our ancestors, in part because some of us don't know all of our exact ancestors. And at times it feels like we are left holding this brokenness and grief that seems to be always at the edges. I've shared the story of how several years ago I traveled on behalf of the Poor People's Campaign to be with the Apache Stronghold in Arizona. I thought I was there to meet with Chairman Wensler Nosey Sr. and his daughter Vanessa in order to sign off on the campaign and our beliefs and to say, join us, but I was very wrong. I came in with only 2.5 days there, and I felt anxious to speak to Wensler, but I kept getting sidetracked. First, it was one of Wensler's daughters who took me on a 3-hour tour of the area, telling me all of the stories of their people, some going back centuries and centuries. And I tried to be nice, but I kept feeling this anxiety rise up in me. I needed to get the signature on the campaign and the work that we were doing together. That's what I was there for. Well, finally, by the time on that first day we got to where we were camping, it was dinner time and I needed to set up my tent, and then someone said I should help with dinner. I kept looking around for Wensler and kept being shuttled in a different direction, never quite able to approach him. That night we sat in a circle for a long time around a fire while Wensler taught all of us. And I again couldn't get close enough. When he was done teaching, I went up to him, and just as I started to speak, he explained to me, your people are good with fire, but you have to be careful not to burn yourself up. And then he walked away. On and on it went until the last day when he explained we were taking a long hike up the mountain. I thought, perfect. I can talk to him now. And then he said we had to hike in silence. We hiked up for hours this mountain in the Arizona heat in the midst of summer. You can picture it. And I don't care what they say about a dry heat. At a certain point, it's hot. Finally, we reached what seemed like the top of the mountain. And I was surprised to see green, lots of green to the side of the trail. There was water there. We were instructed to take a leaf from the plants that were growing around what looked like a spring and to dip the leaf in and then drink the water. These were sacred waters to the Apache. It felt like being on holy ground. Have you ever had that sense when you almost move more slowly because the sense of where you are is sacred? On the hike back down, Wensler told us to listen for the wind. At one point, it sounded like a locomotive whipping around the mountain. Finally, as we got down to camp, I realized I have a flight to catch in Phoenix and a long drive ahead of me to get to the airport. I just gave up. It's not going to happen. I failed the job I was supposed to do when I came here. It's not going to happen. So I started packing up my things. That was when Wensler came over to me and said he'd like to talk to me. We sat on a blanket together, and he explained how he was in support of everything we said. So many words we had to say it. But, he said, you're always starting at the second chapter. And we need you to learn the first chapter before any of your people were here. You need to learn the story that we have that comes before everything you are trying to undo. We agree with you in the injustice. We agree with you how the systems that they need to be changed and transformed, but you're starting at the second chapter. Come learn the first chapter. Wensler told me to come back. And I did, again and again, slowly learning the first chapter, letting go of my anxiety of getting a signature, a stamp on a piece of paper. One of my favorite verses in all of the Bible is from Isaiah chapter 58, verse 12. Your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in. I thought that I had learned that lesson in my time with the Apache stronghold of being a repairer of the breach, to be in relationship. I thought that I had understood generational healing, that it's not a line from A to B. I thought I had understood the limitations of linear thinking, of being so stuck to getting a signature on a page and everything in a strategic plan. I thought I understood that it's a spiral and a process of learning this work of healing, of slowing down enough to receive the first chapter, and for white folks in particular, of feeling the depth of what has been done. Until I reached out recently to the Ramapo-Munsee Lenape Nation leaders. We're building a new sanctuary, both an indoor sanctuary and an outdoor sanctuary at 695 Springfield. And we wanted to be in right relationship. So I called my friend Owl and asked him how we could be accountable in this work, what it would look like to be accountable to Ramapo Munsee Lenape Nation leaders upon whose land we are building. And so Owl put me in touch with another leader, Lehman, and together we had a call kind of talking about what this could look like. And I kept saying, well, I really want to know what the process of accountability should be. I'm trying to get a handle on how we should really, create a plan for accountability. And Owl was very kind and kept letting me talk, but I could tell that there was something wrong. And it's sort of like when you start to get nervous because you know whatever you're saying is probably not exactly right and your mouth kind of rolls on the floor in front of you. It was one of those moments. And finally, at last, I realized I should just grab my mouth and put it down for a minute. And that was when Owl said, well, I think we should do a sweat together, a sweat lodge, and then land giving thanks once the land has thawed in the spring. And I said, right, yeah. So how are we going to develop an accountability plan, though? What's your relationship with the land? Lehman asked. Well, I spoke about how it had been used by the American Red Cross for over 50 years, and we all agreed we should give thanks for what the land had already provided for that important life-saving work, and that we should do so again after the construction was complete. Right, I said, absolutely. I'm just wondering about accountability to you. Like, to you, how would we create accountability to you? Finally, Lehman said very gently, we're not really using kind of the term accountability. I guess we could look into it, but that's not really the language we're using here. I think we need to get to know each other and see what emerges from there. Let's start to be in relationship first. And that's when I smiled, sort of feeling embarrassed, remembering that experience with Wenzler all over again and how hard it is for me to unlearn that linear, that kind of anxiety-ridden, keep going, make a strategic plan, put it all out way of being that completely skips and ignores relationship, right relationship. Joy Harjo's poem continues in conflict resolution with point number 4, where she writes, reduce defensiveness and break the defensiveness chain. Quote, I could hear the light beings as they entered every cell. Every cell is a house of the God of light, they said. I could hear the spirits who love us stomp dancing. They were dancing as if they were here, and then another level of here, and then another until the whole earth and sky was dancing. We are here dancing, they said. There was no there was no I or you. There was us, there was we. There we were, as if we were the music. You cannot legislate music to lockstep, nor can you legislate the spirit of the music to stop at political boundaries or poetry or art or anything that is of value or matters in this world and the next worlds. This is about getting to know each other. We will wind up back at the Blues, standing on the edge of the flatted fifth, about to jump into a fierce understanding together. A fierce understanding together. Perhaps the first step for communities still held by colonialism and so much whiteness is to learn the first chapter. And from there to be in relationship with the earth, with one another, with your heart that is pulsating light and love of generations as well as the grief and pain. Maybe to stop this madness we've done, worrying less about a strategic plan or unifying theory for it all, and ask right here, right now, what would be the most healing thing I could do this day? For some, it's taking care of oneself, of celebrating one's spiritual ancestors, of honoring and cherishing life itself. For some, it's listening to the locomotive of the wind or the wisdom of the night owl or the prayerful dance of the earthworm deep in the humus. For others yet, it is softening your heart and letting it feel, mourning and rejoicing and reconnecting with your humanity, maybe trusting and trying to control less. For others yet, it is learning and studying the first chapter. It is donating and supporting Indigenous sovereignty, language education, and cultural centers. Stopping pipelines from plowing through sacred lands. Ending the doctrine of discovery in this generation. I can't tell you your strategic plan, beloved. But I can tell you that you are each healers and part of this great web that was woven long before any of us took our first breath. I can tell you the tender strand of your life, it matters. You belong. And Earth, if you trust her, and the greater spirit running in us, if you trust them, and the generations, they are here praying for our rising, our raising, our repairing, our releasing. Even as war has begun again, as bombs are sent and violence ripples out once again, even as injustice continues in this land, even against all odds, it is still possible. Ancient ruins can be rebuilt. Generations can be raised up from the foundations. We could yet be called repairers of the breach, restorers of the streets to live in. So may we believe, so may we behave, so may we be. Amen.
Thanks so much, Vicki, for playing today. Bring your whole soul.
Thank you, Lisa.
I started this morning singing a song by a rabbi, Menachem Creditor, and we're going to end our music today by singing together a song by another rabbi, Shoshana Mera Friedman. And I think you have the music to this. The tide is rising. I invite you to stand and body your spirit and join me in singing. So
invite you to take hands, beloved, as we close our service. And for those joining us online, perhaps to extend your hands toward the screen as I reach out to you.
Come take healing as you go of your own story, of our communities, of generations.
Reaching out, we are the way transformation extends in the intimate, in the astronomical, in the time-bending call to heal, to get to know each other.
To loosen, to dance, to remember, to tell story, to mourn and yell, and to take hands once more. To rise again, again, and again. To repair the breach, to magnify the light. Indeed, beloved, this is where we are called to be. Amen.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children, keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children.